Hello, gang. It is time for another episode of The Mikey Show. And I am going to talk to you guys today about Axpona 2023. I know people have been waiting to hear about my synopsis of the show and what I saw. Quickly, I feel to go into the rooms and try and tell you which room sounded better than the others is absolutely misleading, okay? And I'll tell you why. For instance, the last show I went to was in Florida. I went to the Florida show, and MBL room sounded phenomenal, okay? They were really good, really on point. I went to the show this time in Axpona. The MBL room was unremarkable, okay? So does that mean that MBL is not a kick-ass product? No, absolutely not. So it's misleading for us to judge anybody. I think it's absolute folly to try and judge rooms by going room to room and talking about the show. Unless we're judging who threw the dice and won the prize, right? Who actually was lucky enough to get it right through fluke of the location of the room, the electric, the Wi-Fi, the gear all working together. There are so many variables in putting up an audio system, flying all the crap over to Chicago, setting it up for 3 days, man. 3 days. I take more than that to dial in my subwoofers. Okay, we expect guys to go there and in 24 hours, they usually get there a day beforehand, 24 hours, set up a rig and then play it for people and have it do anything. It's really quite asinine, okay? So to try and judge these rooms, to try and say if a product is any good or not and get an idea of that from the show is it's nonsense. What you get an idea of is how lucky were they in getting the setup right. Okay, that's really all we could judge. If I was to go in room, well, these guys really got their setup right. They were lucky. You know, the room sounds great. Oh boy, these guys didn't quite get their setup right. And the people whose rooms maybe didn't sound that great, if you ask them, how did the setup go? They'll be like, oh my God, this is not stuff they tell you unless you ask. Oh my God, we were supposed to have this front end. That thing broke or got stuck in customs or whatever, didn't make it. And now we had to throw in this little ass streamer or this DAC that we normally don't use. There's so many variables that it is absolutely unfair and unjust to try and make assertions of how good product is based on a shitty room setup in 3 days. And okay, so I'm not going to do that. I will not do that for you guys. I've stopped doing that. It makes no sense. I'm not even going to, I can tell you, I mean, how useful is it for me to even tell you what rooms sounded good and what rooms didn't sound good? It doesn't matter because it changes I can tell you, and I've told you guys this before, what rooms sound good every show. Avant-Garde, they sounded kick-ass again. Thank you, Angie. Okay. Some that stood out, Rhythm. Okay, you know Rhythm, man. He's got a brand new design that's also handled by Angie. That room sounded great, okay? And it was the speakers, man. He's got a new set of speakers that have power. They were real great value. Rooms that were just blah. Okay, look, I'm going to tell you something just straight up across the board. I don't like Magico. I don't like Boulder. I don't like Wilson. And it's not to say I never will like them. It's to say that at the shows they never impress me because, especially in terms of Boulder, Magico, and Wilson, especially if you put those together, D'Agostino we can throw in there too. It's going to be an assault on my senses. It's going to be overly dynamic. It's going to be fake audio. Okay, it's going to sound too clean and pretty and devoid of soul. It doesn't sound like real music to me. It sounds like a recreation, a caricature of what people think music is a good hi-fi system should sound like. So that's why we call it hi-fi sounding, okay? So none of those brands won me over. The more I hear Boulder, and somebody I know really loves Boulder, so I try and like it more and more. I don't like it. I think I can pretty much close the coffin on Boulder. And Magico, I think can be good, but I just still haven't heard a killer Magico system. I am going to be doing some exploring coming up, and I'm going to be doing some exploring the other things to check out some of these really illustrious brands that are super hyped to see if they're any good. I did go to the Wadax room. That was a brand that I was really curious about because it's a $165,000 DAC, and then it's an extra 20 grand to add the optical function. My reference DAC is 24 grand for the whole thing, including the optical connection that comes with it. And I'm not talking about Toslink. I'm talking about ST glass fiber, twist lock, broadcast grade, data center level, data transfer, okay? So Elliot, okay, a real interesting guy. He's gonna, unless you understand New Yorkers, you might not get Elliot, okay? I don't normally like Elliot's rooms. I don't think the Goebbels are necessarily that spectacular. I think they appear to be pro audio drivers. Maybe they're not, whatever. It looks like a pro audio PA to me in a fancy box. Normally, I don't like the sound in there. I went in this year. Now, I've never heard the Goebel and the and audio research, okay? Man, I love Trent Suggs. Dude, you rock. I don't necessarily like the brand, okay? I do think that Mini Trent, I know that little guy that you designed, that thing is a cool design with those little tubes with the numbers on them and shit, the entry-level audio research. Brilliant product, dude. Maybe you got flambéed for designing that thing, but dude, you are on the right, you were in the right mindset with that because that's a super cool product. That's probably my favorite audio research product. But you couldn't hear it. You know, there was a static display with those things out front because. So we went into Elliot's room. He had all the monos, 4 different audio research monos on the floor. One of the meters was broken. I saw Trent last year fixing a meter when he was sitting on the ground. So maybe those meters are a little tricky. They are pretty cool, but why do we need them anyways? This why we need the meter will roll into another one of my comments coming up about fluff and how things look. So the Wadax, I think the Wadax was making that room. Every other time I've heard Elliot's room, it never had Wadax. This was the first time I heard it with Wadax, and it was quite nice. We stayed in there for a decent while, listening to that system and very much enjoying it. I think I can hear what the Wadax is doing, and it seems to be additive. It seems like it is giving a grain or a feel. Man, it's almost like it's mimicking vinyl. I can hear a grain in it. Now, I have been invited to Mike Levine's in Seattle. This is a very illustrious audiophile who has a world-class level system that his reputation and his rig precedes him, right? We find him on What's Best Forum as one of the, real contributors to What's Best. He's a gentleman and a scholar, and he's got quite a system. He invited me to come and bring my playback designs, and so we can do a comparison. Now, I'm not going there to prove anything bad. I'm not going to kick anybody's ass, or it's not a game for me. Game on, like let's fight. It's nothing like that. I'm truly going to explore, man. I want to hear. I think I have a world-class rig that competes with anybody else's. So I welcome to be able to go to these other world-class rigs and listen and see if it's better, how? That's what I want to know. I would love to hear that. So Mike has been generous enough to invite me. I'll go take the playback. We will do comparisons against the 165, 85 if he's got the optical. And then if he's got the streamer, we're at 270. So I could bring my $10,000 streamer, and we could compare. But nonetheless, I digress. The show. Let me get back to the show.